Good morning and welcome to day 81 of Geriatric 1944's Coronavirus Diaries. The only health problem I've had during this trivial virus scare has been my joints seizing up. Normally I take quite a lot of exercise, especially in the summer and winter, when I can swim in sunny climates. In fact, I usually do about 5 hours a day swimming during the summer. And it's very, very good for me. It keeps me loosened up. I'm a big fan of swimming, but I don't like to do it in England because the weather's so appalling. I have to have gorgeous sunshine. It has to be lovely and hot and superb weather. Anyway, recently my hip has started aching like mad. It aches less when I go for a walk, go out in the park, feed the geese and the ducks and all that. I think exercise really helps it. But normally I'm just sitting at home watching the bloody television or making these stupid videos. But one way or the other, my hip has been really starting to ache, and more than ache, giving me pain. Well, my physiotherapist is now allowed to return to her work. She was originally a major in the army, and she worked on the troops out in Afghanistan who'd had various assorted limbs blown off. So she really knows about the human body and how to sort things out. Well, I was delighted that she is absolutely certain there is no problem with my hip at all. The problem is with my upper body, that because of sitting all the time is squashing down and causing the hip to ache. But she actually bent my knee up, and my knee will go up happily to my shoulder, and actually doesn't cause any pain at all. She said, no, you can't have a hip problem, and you don't need a hip replacement, because I dread surgery. I mean, I think the moment somebody comes at you with a knife, your body goes, I'm giving up, please. So I don't like all that. But of course, as you reach 75, I think an awful lot of things start functioning less well. Anyway, we were talking during my massage session about sex, because I was discussing various assorted celebrities and sexual situations I've been in, and sex that I've had and haven't had with such mega stars as David Bowie and John Lennon and all the others who I've known. I've been lucky enough to know in my past, and some of whom I've had sexual relationships with, some of whom have wanted to have sexual relationships with me, and I haven't wanted to have sexual relationships with them. But we discussed sex, and she said to me, well, I've got to say, after all the years I've known you, the one thing I'm absolutely certain you're not is a predator. And I said, no, actually, I have to put you right there now. I'm not a predator in that I have never, ever forced anyone to having sex, had sex with anyone who didn't want to have sex with me. As you know, I've never had sex with anyone under the age of 16 of either gender. But what I have done, and I do believe this does make me a predator, is I have persuaded people who may not have found me sexually attractive, that I was sexually attractive, so they decided they did want to have sex with me. Sometimes only once or twice or three times, and then they reckoned it really wasn't their thing, and quite often we've gone on to be really good friends to this day. But I have been very successful at seduction. And I've done that with both genders. Being bisexual, I've had very many wonderful times with girls and boys. However, I do have regrets now that I've got older. My only regret is that sometimes if you're with somebody who is, say, basically mainly heterosexual, and you persuade them to try to get into a situation where they experiment with gay sex, and it all works fine and they enjoy themselves, you enjoy yourself, because if they're not enjoying themselves, it turns me off and I stop it immediately, by the way, both genders. But if it's nice and pleasant, that's fine, and you'll have it 2 or 3 times, and then the friendship will develop as a friendship as opposed to a sexual relationship. And that's the way often it goes. But sometimes, in later life, those people who may have been less mature mentally, although always over the age of 16, they may well have started having regrets and thinking, you know what, this really wasn't my scene. And then when they meet the person who is the love of their life, and perhaps they get married and they've got children and all the rest, they're a little worried because they're not sure whether or not they should mention this to their wives or husbands or whoever it may happen to be. And it may cause them stress and unhappiness and worries. I think if I had a handbook written by Jonathan King now, age 75, about sexuality, and if at the age of 18 or 19 or 20 I'd been able to read that handbook, there would have been a chapter saying, do think in terms of possible repercussions and consequences that may come along, because not just for you, but for the other person, and will it still be right? There have been certainly circumstances in the past where I have desperately wanted to have sex with someone, but decided it would damage them and me if I did so, and as a result, I haven't had sex. And that's been quite an important part in my past, but I probably didn't do it enough. When you're young and you're horny, you just want to go with people you find attractive if they find you attractive, or, in my case, if you can persuade them to find you attractive. Anyway, looking back at my sex life, one of my most amusing tracks, I think, was on anti-cloning. I've mentioned this before, and it is now available, the whole album, on Apple Music and Spotify and all the rest. The point of those tracks was to use the same backing track, but speed it up or slow it down and take some instruments out, put other instruments in as well, and write a completely different song melodically and lyrically to the same track, to show that songwriting, which I believe is an art form, can be many things. And one of the things I did was I covered Sexuality on several tracks on the album, actually. One of the funniest, I think, is called Jason Donovan's A Puff. It was the time when he was wrongly accused of being gay, and he was rather furious about this, mainly because he's not at all anti-gay. Very nice young man, by the way. I've met him several times. But the paper said he was gay, and he sued them, and he won, I think, if I remember rightly. And I did this track called Jason Donovan's A Puff. No, I'm only joking. It really doesn't bother me which gender he is poking. And I thought that was quite fun. But the track I want to play you now, which is quite original, I think, and you may not have heard it before, was based on my two biggest crushes when I was little, a pre-teen, a pre-adolescent. I had massive crushes on two people. One was a lady, Kim Novak, an actress. She's in Vertigo, amongst other films. Gorgeous lady, still alive, by the way, looks after cats, I believe. And the other was a young man who sadly passed away quite young, James Dean. And actually, if you look at them both, they both look quite similar to each other, which explains what my situation and scene is. But it is an amusing track anyway, very basic, very simply done, but I think it might amuse you. So, ladies and gentlemen, for your delight today, see you tomorrow, and here is Jonathan King with Kim Novak and James Dean.
Boyfriend, da 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 da. Girlfriend, da 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 da. Hold me, da 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 da. Kiss me, da 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 da. Love me, write me, adore me, excite me. Idle, da 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 da. First love, da 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 da. Heartbreak, da 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 da. Mistake, da 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 da. Live with me, lust with me, pray with me, trust with me. Husband, da 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 da. Housewife, da 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 da. Babies, da 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 da. Rabies, da 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 da. Cuties, employ me, destroy me. It's simply not as simple as at first it looks. When you find the rules of worship are not written in the books. When I was a child, before I was a teen, I had crushes on Kim Novak and James Dean. Did that make me hetero, bi or a queen? All that loving from afar was a very tricky scene. Looking back, I wonder what might have been. I was so full of emotion, so innocent, so keen. Boyfriend, da 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 da. Girlfriend,